So then, it's preview number 12 ahead of this Overwatch League season for 2021, and that means it's past the L teams now. It's past London and the two LA teams, or one LA team and then the other one. And then we have New York Excelsior. New York Excelsior are incredibly interesting this season because they are new York Excelsior? New York Excelsior? New? Anyway, moving on. New York have had a very stable roster for the past 3 or so years, but this time we are seeing a massively overhauled New York Excelsior. It is the first massive overhaul they've ever had, and it's going to be very interesting to see how this roster works out going forward in 2021. So New York Excelsior are a very consistent team. However, they have been on the slide. When you look at their inaugural season performance, they got top of the standings, but kind of choked in the playoffs. We all know about that. It's a big old meme. Then they got third in 2019, still doing pretty well. And then in 2020, 7th. And that's kind of where I think the New York hierarchy were like, right, okay, it's time to refresh here. It's time to move on from the past and see if we can build a new roster that can get us back to the heights where we were at in the first season of the Overwatch League. And with this, there's been a switch up at the coaching. So, the strategic coach Garincha, who has gone out, he's now with the Uprising Academy, and so has Steven, their player manager. Both of them have gone. Pine obviously was a streamer for them, he's gone as well. But both of them have gone. They still have Why Not in as head coach, and they still have they've brought in Unknown as their player manager, and then they've brought in Skix as an assistant coach who was with the London Spitfire last season, and INT has moved to head of data, which is an interesting role because I've never seen a head of data in an Overwatch League team before, but anyway, that's, I guess, something that's pretty cool. Then we see the movements out of the roster, and this is obviously substantial. So, Haxel moves out and retires, Nene has moved out, he is no longer assigned, so is Hotbar. Bianca moved out, and then we will talk about Bianca in a minute. Who Are You moved out and retired. Mano moves out and goes over to the Philadelphia Fusion, who we'll be looking at in the not too distant future. That's very interesting. Mandu moves out, goes to the Guangzhou Charge. Again, someone we've looked at recently, and actually, it's a weird one, that one. Sabi Yolby, their historical team captain, the face of New York Excelsior, moves out and goes over to the Seoul Dynasty. Big move there. Libero moves out. He's yet to find a team in Animo. Also joins Sabi Yolby over at the Seoul Dynasty. So that's a monumental shift in roster there. When you think 10 players have moved out for the New York Excelsior in 2020, it leaves them with the lone man, Jjonak himself. And he's the only person retained from the original New York Excelsior roster. From that 2017 roster, Jjonak is the last remaining player. He is now going to take on that team captain role, passed on to him from Sabi Yolby. So that's some very big shoes to fill, should we say, for Jjonak. But also, he now has the Overwatch League experience. He has the most Overwatch League experience out of all of these players, I would say, bar maybe one. But this is an inexperienced New York Excelsior squad, massively inexperienced compared to the squad they had before. So it's going to be a big test for this New York squad to see if it settles down and can compete in a very hotly contested East region, I suppose you would say. But behind Jjonak, we are going to talk about all of these new players coming in, and they are all new. So the first batch. First of all, it was Yakpung. Yakpung is going to be the replacement main tank for Mano. Yakpung, he's been in the Overwatch League before with Toronto Defiant. I didn't rate Yakpung, but I also didn't think he was terrible. He was part of the good Toronto Defiant roster that we've had up until now, obviously. But he's always been part of the O2. So O2 Blast, and he moved on to O2 Ardiant, then he came to Toronto Defiant, and then he went back to O2 Blast. And he's been giving some good performances for the O2 Blast in Korea. And now he finds himself back in the Overwatch League with an all-Korean roster at the New York Excelsior. And I think that's a pretty good move for New York. I don't think it's the best main tank you can get, right? So he's not got a massive amount of Overwatch League experience, but he has got high-level Contenders career experience, which is also very, very good. He's got a rather good history, like Contenders Season 1 2020 winner, beating Runaway, Contenders Season 1 Week 2 winner. You know, there's plenty of accolades that Yakpung has, so he's not a terrible player. And I think he's going to be a consistent main tank for New York. Is he going to be consistently, like, fantastic? I don't think so. But there's a key to this whole New York Excelsior roster, and that is building for the future. Yakpung, out of all of the players signed, apart from the ones that already have Overwatch League experience, is the oldest. So, and he's 20. So that says something, right? Whereas some of the people coming out, like Manu and Sabiobi, they're like 23, 24, 25. So it's definitely a change of guard. It's New York 2.0. It's bringing in the young refresh to try and create something new. And I really admire that from the New York Excelsior. It's probably taken a leaf out of London Spitfire's book, but I think it's doing it in a better way. So anyway, it's keeping a little bit of that historical sort of, you know, not historical, but it's giving a little bit of that experience. So then we have Bianca. Bianca will be the off-tank for New York Excelsior, even though he was let go at the start of this transfer window. A little bit weird, but yeah, Bianca comes back. I was massively surprised when he was dropped, and I really think they should have kept Bianca, and they are going to keep Bianca. Bianca, in my opinion, was more consistent than Hotbar was, and Hotbar is very flashy, but not consistent in my opinion. Bianca was consistent, but not flashy. And I think Mano looked better when Bianca was in there. I think Bianca's much more stable. So I like that they've kept hold of Bianca and partnered him with Yakpung. They've got a nice, stable tank line. No swapping in and out like there was last season between Bianca and Hotbar. It's going to be Yakpung and Bianca. It's going to be stuck to that. And there's not going to be any messing around. I think that's best for a team, to be quite honest. So I think it's promising. Again, he's not going to be an insane off-tank. He's not going to be, like, he's not going to be Choi Yobin level or something silly like that. But he's going to be nice and consistent, I think. It's going to be a nice, decent tank line. It's not going to be a pop-off tank line, but it's going to be a nice, decent tank line. So now we move on to their other support. This is going to be the main support for the New York Excelsior going into 2021. This is Friday. Another one of those... Another one of those weird OZ Gaming pickups. It's really weird. Like, OZ Gaming has been... There's plenty of players being picked up from that team into the Overwatch League, and it's something really a lot of us didn't see coming. But Friday, he's not a massively well-known name. He does cover the hero pool of a main support very well, which is, again, pleasing to see. But he's not anything to write home about from what I've seen. Although, from what we've seen from New York Excelsior scrims, and what we've seen of the New York Excelsior, he has looked decent. He's looked decent. Again, the whole thing of this New York Excelsior squad is nothing pops off. You don't look at anything as like, oh my god, that's insane. But then it's like, but they're not bad. They're really not bad, you know. So that's, again, kind of the whole thing with Friday. He's not gonna be this insane, flashy, pop-off player, but he's not bad. He's gonna be a nice, consistent player. He, again, reminds me of the likes of Animo. Animo isn't flashy, but he gets the job done. And I think that's exactly what Friday's there to do. He's not there to be flashy, he's there to get the job done. And I think he'll do that. Will he do that to the extent which can throw New York Excelsior up to the top 3 in the East region? No, don't think so. I don't think some of these players are good enough to be top 3 of East region. But they will be middle of that East region. I don't think they're going to be languishing down with a certain yellow team. But yeah, again, a very hotly contested region. And yeah, going to be interesting. Anyway, moving on, and now we come up to the DPS. 4 DPS players for the New York Excelsior, all brought in at the same time, and these are some names from across a big spectrum of contenders, really, because you've got one name coming in from Contenders China, and then you got some other names coming in from Korea as well. So, first of all, we're going to look at Feather. Feather is a flex DPS player known for his Echo, Mei, Genji, Pharah, and Sombra. We want to see a Sombra on an East region team because, well, East region teams tend to like to run Sombra. Asia is well known for Sombra, especially China. So you need to be able to match that Sombra if it comes out. Sombra can slip into the meta every now and then, so it's nice to see a good Sombra player on a team. And so I can tell you now, New York Excelsior have that, which is really good to see. Feather comes in from Talent Esports, a team that has done actually quite well in the recent season of Contender's career after switching over from the Pacific region, which they dominated. But before he was at Talent Esports, he was at OWLRU, who made a massive wave in career by coming all the way up through the open testing career, all the way into Contender's trials, and all the way into Contenders, and doing incredibly well. So that is pretty unprecedented in career, because we see so many like stalwart teams like Runaway and O2 Blast, Mystic at the time, and they just came out of nowhere and did incredibly well. So they made a name for themselves, and Feather now finds himself in the Overwatch League after the back of that, which is incredible. And he does have a while ago history at Gen B, which obviously is one of the academy teams of Gen G, which is the academy team of Seoul Dynasty. Funny how things come around. Anyway, moving on to the next player we're going to be taking a look at. This is a player you will know very well, Ivy. Ivy comes in from the Philadelphia Fusion. Ivy, obviously flex DPS player. He's a great player, and we were really surprised when Philadelphia Fusion let him go. Little were we to know that they were going to sign Rascal later on down the line. But yeah, Ivy is going to be a great player. There's not too much to say about him, and he's going to be the other player that offers a lot of experience, because he has the most experience only to Jjonak, and that's going to be invaluable on a squad that has a lot of inexperience, to be fair. So yeah, I like the balance of this York Excelsior squad as they keep going on. Then we have Flora. Flora comes in from Team Diamond, spent all of his time in the in Contender's career. He's a hit scan player, but again has a decent Sombra. Again, they're banking on this Sombra. You know, you should be really good in the Sombra meta, New York. You really, really should. He's known for his Ash, Widow, and McCree alongside that Sombra. Again, only 18. All of these DPS players are under the age of 20, by the way. Again, only 18. Coming in from Team Diamond, has a history at O2 Blast and Meta Athena. Good player. Good player. Again, not anything to go absolutely insane about. This is not going to be like, oh my god, this is the hottest prospect to come into the Overwatch League. This is going to be amazing. But they don't look bad. They're not bad players at all. They're not like, oh my god, why are they picking this player up? So, again, I'm quietly confident for this New York Excelsior team. Not to do phenomenally well, but to do well. That's what I will say. Then moving on from Flora, we have Guang Boon. Guang Boon is the kind of the odd one out here. He's only 18. He's another hit scan player, but comes in from China, because he comes in from Team Cat. And before that, CC Trainee, which is the academy team of Team CC, which is the academy team of Shanghai Dragons. Yes, there are academies of academies, and it's really confusing. Team Cat, again, was it was a team that made massive waves in China, very similarly to the way in which OWLRU did. Came out of nowhere. They won Open Division 2020 Season 4 in China, which got them into Contenders for 2020 Season 2. They then came in their first week of Contenders after getting through trials in week 3 and went all the way to the final for that week and lost to Team CC. That is not easy to do. You know, they ended up, getting through a bracket that contained people like Billy Gaming and Flag Gaming. Flag Gaming would eventually go on and win that season. So that's not easy. And it's, again, made a lot of those players... Well, it's made a lot of people stand up and notice the players that were on that team. And therefore, I believe we have some Team Cat players that have moved into Chengdu Hunters or Hangzhou Spark. I'm not sure which one. But they have been stood up and been noticed. And the Overwatch League has taken notice, and henceforth he finds himself at the New York Excelsior as one of the DPS players. Again, really nice, deep DPS line for New York Excelsior. I like the setup of New York. It may not be, they may not have a backup support, they may not have a backup tank, but that's two roles, in my opinion, you want to keep really stable. Because, let's be honest, there are nowhere near as many heroes in those roles as there are in DPS. Whereas DPS, you've got to cover a lot of bases. And although, and Colorhex is an example of this last year, you can cover an absolute ton of the bases, but then when you come up against someone that not specializes on a hero, but specializes on a bunch of heroes, you're going to get pummeled. Not everyone can be Prophet. This is what I'm saying. Not everyone can be Flatter or Prophet, who are insane on whatever they play. New York Excelsior have got 4 DPS players to cover every single base. They can have one player concentrate on this group of heroes, one player concentrate on this group of heroes. They've got 2 hit scans, 2 flexes, and that I think is a really nice balance. I really like the way in which this New York Excelsior squad is built. And I think it will, I think it will reap rewards for New York in the long term. Not this season, and I don't think that's the aim for New York this season to do really, really well. I think this season is a building season for New York. To build this roster, get a good experience, and then go into 2022 with a roster that is just there, ready to go, doesn't need much in terms of changes, and can just hit the ground running. I think that is what they're looking for. And I think they might just get that. This is what London tried to do last year, and it didn't work. But London gutted their roster much more severely than what New York did. Much more painfully, much more severely, much more drastically. And I think this roster will do better. I really do. However, we move on to our up-and-coming matches for the New York Excelsior, first 6 matches of the season. First of all, they will take on the Chengdu Hunters. Now, this is an interesting one. Chengdu, they're a team I quietly rate a lot, but New York can take this team close. Can they beat Chengdu? I think New York can beat Chengdu, but I would back Chengdu. I would back Chengdu. But I think it could be a real close one. I really do, and people possibly won't agree with me with that one. But I really think New York can surprise a few people. New York Hangzhou, again, I think New York could make that quite close. However, I do think Hangzhou will win that one. And in the 3rd match of the season, it's Seoul Dynasty. Seoul should win that. But I do always have question marks over Seoul's consistency in the regular season. However, the way in which the season is set up this year, I don't think Seoul can afford not to be consistent in the regular season. So I think Seoul will still win that one. Then in the 4th match of the season, it's Shanghai Dragons. I would expect Shanghai to win that one. Then in the 5th match of the season, it's Philadelphia Fusion. With their addition of Rascal, I would expect them to win that one. And then we have New York versus Guangzhou Charge in the 6th match of the season. That will be close. I think that will be incredibly close. There is the caveat. I mean, a lot of people will say, well, New York beat San Francisco Shock in a scrim. Yes, but it's a scrim. Scrims, and I know this, like, at a much lower level, I know this from Illusion. Scrims, you take with a pinch of salt, because sometimes teams can be practicing comps they're not particularly good at. Not necessarily playing to win, they're playing to practice. And therefore, there can be a lot of mitigating factors that can cause a lot of erroneous results, which is why scrimbucks don't always count for a lot. And that's what we have to take into account here. And I know a lot of people have been screaming about the fact that New York have been beating San Francisco in scrims. And again, it may turn around that, yeah, well, they come in and they rip people apart. But I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think this squad has got the quality to start ripping people like Shanghai Dragons apart. Which, if you're going on that scrim result against San Francisco Shock, is what should be happening. And I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't. But that is kind of where I'm leaving it for this one. Oh, we're getting onto the P's now. So Paris Eternal and Philadelphia Fusion. We are getting really much. We're getting a lot closer to the season now. And it's going to be super interesting to see all these teams in action once we get there. Experimental card tournament has been happening as well, which has also been crazy fun. Illusion Gaming had a team compete in that, and they went up against new Kings of EU contenders. I actually played in that match. That was fun. It was an experience, but anyway, enough of that. All the socials are linked in the video description as per usual to Illusion Gaming and myself. Join the Discord if you want to talk about more Overwatch League stuff and anything else, because I really want that to be a cool and welcoming community. But for now, thank you guys so much for this video. If you'd like to give a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.